This podcast is edited and produced by Buford Digital Productions. Visit their website today to see what they can do for you.
The wandering path. The wandering path.
Welcome to the Wandering Path podcast, a sanctuary for the modern seeker and a dedicated practitioner. Here we believe that magic isn't just found at the destination, it's woven into every step of the journey. Whether you're here for the wisdom of tarot, the pull of the moon, or the whispers of the stars, you found your seat at the table. I'm your host, Adonis Youngblood, and today we're stepping back onto the path to explore what it truly means to live a life of magic. Welcome back, all my beautiful spiritual friends. Today we are talking about a specific topic that is sometimes most misunderstood, most feared, and seems to be dangerous, but here I am talking about it today, and we are talking about shadow, or the shadow self, shadow work, and anything that is your inner shadow relation with your life. In spiritual and psychological and historic traditions, the shadow refers to the hidden, unacknowledged, and rejected parts of your psyche. It is everything within yourself that you have pushed into a dark because of societal, your family, or your cultural deemed it unacceptable, dangerous, or shameful. The concept was beautifully bridged between psychology and spirituality by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, who famously wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." Carl Jung was a genius when it comes to finding the path towards light in a dark world. In his time, when he was still alive and thinking and breathing, just like we are, there was a moment where he also had the same doubts, also had the same feelings and emotions that we now feel, but in a different time, in a different era of the world and the evolution of the world. But when we start to focus on what lives in the shadow, it is a common misconception that the shadow is purely evil or negative. In reality, it is simply a repository for exposure energy. And generally, it contains two types of traits. The dark shadow. These are the qualities we actively suppress because they are socially taboo or uncomfortable to face. They include raw anger, selflessness, deep-seated envy, lust, grief, insecurity, and instinctual criminal drives we try to civilize. And then secondly, the golden shadow. Ironically, we also hide our greatest gifts in the shadow. If you were shamed for being too loud as a child, you might have buried your natural leadership or creativity. The golden shadow contains your unfulfilled potential, your deep intuition, your wildness, and your unique genius. So, next time when we think of doing shadow work, do not see just the darkness, but the light hiding within the darkness. Sometimes it's more to do with, instead of opening windows or doors, we just have to open the curtains for light to flow within so that we can be exposed to the truth of ourselves. We are all, in our own ways, a leader that has been silenced. In our own ways, we are an artist who has been stolen from. In our own ways, we are all musicians who have been ignored. We all have our deep and darkest parts of us that we try to hide because of culture, family, friends, social life, whatever the situation is. Remember, things that were 100 years taboo is considered normal today, and the same goes for what is now considered taboo will become later the new normal. But it won't be in the time that we are alive. But luckily, there is hope. There will always be hope. Exploring how a shadow is formed. When we are born, we are a whole, undivided psyche. As we grow, we learn that certain behaviors earn love and acceptance, while others earn rejection and punishment. To survive and belong, we split ourselves in two. The persona. The persona is the acceptable mask we show the world, and the shadow is the basement of the mind where we throw everything that doesn't fit in the mask. Signs the shadow is opening. Because the shadow is unconscious, you cannot see it directly. Instead, you see it through a reflection in the outer world. The two most common ways it manifests is psychological projection. When you have a strong, highly charged emotional reaction to someone else's flaws, you are often looking at a mirror of your own shadow. Example: if you are intensely triggered by someone who is boastful, it is the way it becomes your inner need for recognition and is buried deep in your shadow, locked away because you believe it's bad to want attention. The shadow slip is the second one. When you are exhausted, stressed, or intoxicated, the conscious mind loses its grip on a basement door. A sudden, uncharacteristic outburst of rage, a slip of the tongue, or a self sabotage action is often the shadow bursting out to demand attention. That is why I have a strong belief and a personal experience with people who are intoxicated, drunk out of their minds, and then they start talking. That is when the truth really tries to set themselves free. It is a form of the shadow leaking out like a leaky faucet or a bottle that has a hole in it. That is when the truth wants to come out, and that has been bottled up for such a long time that it feels that it is supposed to bring you towards a feeling or sensation or euphoria of feeling lighter. But afterwards, we regret everything because at that moment, no one was ready for the truth. The shadow on the spiritual path. In many spiritual circles, there is a trap known as a spiritual bypassing. The tendency to use high vibrational concepts, meditation, and forces positivity to avoid facing raw human pain. True spiritual growth, however, requires going down before you can go up. The process of bringing these hidden parts into the light of awareness is called shadow work. Instead of trying to conquer, destroy, or get rid of the shadow, the spiritual goal is to interrogation. You look at your anger, envy, or a deep wounds without judgment. By meeting these dark corners with compassion, the trapped energy is released and you reclaim your lost wholeness. As the alchemist saying goes, in filth it shall be found. Your greatest spiritual gold is often buried right inside the things you've spent a lifetime from running from. That is, this is incredibly true. Whenever I had friends coming to me and asking for spiritual guidance, they always try to go for the quickest, the shortest, and the most easy path. But at the end of the day, you're literally just shooting yourself in the foot. You are neglecting that golden opportunity of really having an adventure on your path towards your goal. You know what your goal is, but the destination isn't the most important thing. It is the path that you take towards your destination. Nothing in life comes for free. There are some things that we have to let go of. This ego death that happens when we let go and experience this lightness, and this only comes from making sacrifices, inner, inner, most deepest sacrifices. Now, what is shadow work? How do you do shadow work? Shadow work is a deeply transformative, but because it involves looking at the parts of yourself you spent a whole lifetime avoiding, it requires an approach rooted in absolute self compassion rather than self criticism. It is the subconscious mind and will to simply lock the door tighter. Think of shadow work as an archaeological dig. You are to discover and understand, not to judge. Here are five practical ways and safe ways to begin exploring your shadow. Number one is tracing your triggers. This is called the mirror method. This is one of my favorite methods to use while doing shadow work. Your triggers are the easiest roadmap to your shadow. When someone or something causes an intense, disappointed emotional reaction in you, it is usually a projection of a repressed part of yourself. Next time you feel a surge of intense irritation, judgment, or resentment towards someone, pause and ask yourself these questions. What specific trait in this person am I rejecting so strongly? Where in my own life do I exhibit that trait, even in a small or hidden way? Was I punished, shamed, or rejected as a child for showing that specific quality? Example of mirror the mirror method. If you are intensely triggered by people who set strict boundaries or say no easily, your shadow may hold a deeply repressed need to honor your own limits, buried under a conscious persona of being a people pleaser. Number two, targeted shadow journaling. Writing by hand bypasses the analytical mind and allows the subconscious to speak. When journaling for shadow work, the goal is unfiltered honesty. No one else is ever going to read this. Try sitting with a notebook and using one of these specific prompts. What am I most afraid of people finding out about me? Write about the time you felt intense envy. What does the person you envied have that you secretly believe you aren't allowed to have? What are the rules of your family or upbringing, and how do you punish yourself when you break these unwritten rules? Number three, interview your inner antagonist. This is a safe, creative visualization technique. Think of a recurring negative emotion, a self sabotage habit, or a part of yourself you deeply dislike. Close your eyes. Visualize the part sitting in a chair across from you and have a gentle conversation with it and ask it, what are you trying to protect me from? What do you need from me right now? How old do you feel? This last one feels like a silly question to ask, but I promise you it has a specific reason. You will often find that the most aggressive, angry, or anxious parts of your shadow are actually just terrified, frozen younger versions of you trying to protect you from being hurt or rejected the way you were in the past. Number four, explore your golden shadow. Shadow work isn't just about looking at your flaws, it's also about reclaiming your buried light. To find your golden shadow, look at who you deeply admire. Who are your heroes, artistic inspiration, or the people whose lives makes you think, I wish I could do that, but I never could. The traits you admire so fiercely in others are actually blueprints of your own dormant potential. You wouldn't be able to recognize the vibrate with the quality in them of the seed if it didn't already exist inside you. Number five, establish a safe container first. The most important rule of safe shadow work is to take it all in small bite sized doses. You will feel overwhelmed, disassociated, or flooded with shame. Stop immediately and ground yourself. Before you begin any shadow work, Put these guardrails in place. Grounding practices. Have a physical anchor ready for when things feel heavy. This could be a walk in nature, a warm cup of tea, or focusing on the sensation of your feet on the floor. The 20-minute rule. Don't dwell in the shadow basement all day. Set a timer, do your journaling and exploration, and then consciously close the book and do something light, creative, or mundane to bring yourself back to the present. Know when to call a guide. If you are dealing with a deep trauma, severe dissociation, or wounds that feel too heavy to carry alone, shadow work should be done in partnership with a trauma informed therapist or a trusted spiritual mentor. These 5 rules are things that I try to do on a regular basis. I don't want to claim daily basis because I cannot physically do shadow work every single day of my life. If you can, congratulations, and that is an accomplishment. But if you can't, we are all human, we are all part of the path towards enlightenment and to our goals that we set for ourselves. We focus on what we can and we place the things that we want to focus on in the future in a checkbox or a to-do list in a mental way, sort of way. But now we are coming to the inner child. Yes, the inner child is just as part of us as the shadow is part of us. The connection between the shadow and the inner child healing. The shadow and the inner child are two sides of the same psychological coin. You cannot truly heal on without meeting the other, because the shadow is essentially the graveyard where we buried the parts of our inner child that weren't safe to express. When you look closely at your shadow, you won't just find abstract concepts like rage or greed. You will find a living, breathing, frozen version of your younger self who was forced to hide those traits to survive. The dynamic, how they all connect. To understand how they interact, imagine a young child who is naturally loud, expressive, and fiercely passionate. One day, after an emotional outburst, an exhausted parent snaps, "Stop being so dramatic, you're driving me crazy." In that split second, the child's psyche makes a survival calculation. To be loved and accepted, I cannot be loud or passionate. How is this often split? The wound, or the inner child. The young child feels a deep sting or rejection and shame. They internalize the belief, "I am too much, my raw feelings hurt people." The exile, the shadow. To protect themselves from feeling that pain again, the child splits off their natural passion, loudness, and anger, pushing them down into the unconscious shadow. The mask, or the persona. The child develops a quiet, overly accommodating, people pleasing exterior to exterior they say safe and love. Decades later, as an adult, that hidden energy doesn't just vanish, it stays locked in the shadow, guarded by a frozen hurt inner child. It manifests as a chronic resentment, an inability to say no, or sudden uncharacteristic outbursts of anger when the pressure in the basement gets too high. How to heal both together. Healing them simultaneously requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing your shadow traits like jealousy, control, or rage as monsters to be defeated, you must view them as the definition and armor worn by a terrified child. Here is a step by step approach to integrate and healing both at once, something that I have tried and still trying to this very day. Track the shadow trait back to an age. When a shadow that trait flares up, let's say you experience an intense, irrational wave of jealousy because a friend is succeeding. Don't scold yourself. Stop and feel the physical sensation of that envy in your body. Close your eyes and ask yourself, how old do I feel right now? Often a specific age or a memory will instantly surface. You might suddenly remember being 7 years old, watching a sibling get a praise while you felt completely invisible. The shadow envy you feel today is just a 7-year-old child crying out because they are still operating under the belief that there isn't enough love to recognize to go on. Number two, the shadow with the inner child reparenting. Once you identify the younger part holding that shadow trait, your conscious adult self needs to step in as the loving parent that child needed back then. You can use the simple internal dialogue framework. Acknowledge the shadow. I see this intense jealousy, anger, fear right now. It's okay. That is here. Validate the child. I remember when you felt invisible at 7 years old. It made perfect sense that you felt angry and left out back then. You weren't wrong for wanting to be seen. Reparent and reassure. You don't have to fight for scraps anymore. I see you. I love you exactly as you are. Even when you are angry or envious, you are safe with me now and for always. It's basically having that heart to heart conversation with the person you see in the mirror. Your eyes that you look into in the mirror is the same eyes as the inner child looks at the adult version of yourself. You are now at an age where maturity and wisdom is either in a constant battle with each other or they are trying to work everything through. Either way, you can still be part of the inner child's resolutions towards feeling safe and secure and healing that part of that moment, that split second where you were told you were too much and you needed to be more like someone else or be compared constantly to how other people are succeeding and how you are not succeeding like them. As you grow up, you realize that the only two people you have to make proud of, or you have to make proud in your life, is the younger version of yourself and the older version of yourself. The younger version of yourself is the child that wants to jump on a bed. If you are now in a place where you can jump on a bed, do it. Just do it. Don't let other people or society tell you it's childish. You are doing now that specific thing because you are wanting to heal that inner child within yourself. If you want to eat a bowl of ice cream for dinner and know that later you will regret it, do it now and regret it later. Your inner child will thank you. And third and lastly, reclaim the band energy. When a child is wounded, the positive aspect of their energy gets trapped in a shadow along with the pain. When you soothe the hurt inner child, the shadow trait softens, and the pure, raw love force trapped inside is returned to you. This podcast is presented and edited by Buford Digital Productions. I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast and thank you for taking the time and as always have a wonderful and a blessed day.